Welcome everybody to In Progress, the show where we kind of complain about what's happening during this week. We have actually good news this week, so it's going to be a fun one. Maybe. We'll see. A lot of things have happened this week. I'm Sam Gonzalez. Welcome everybody to the show. Digital director here at Progress, Texas. And joining me, usually and as always, but not always, but sometimes, advocacy and development coordinator. I read it. I switched tabs to learn it. Tatum Owen. I learned it. And by learned it, I mean read it. Welcome, Tatum.
Much appreciated, Sam. Good to see you. And audience, hello.
And then, of course, there's Haley. You know Haley. She's been international TikTok celebrity on our TikTok. Go follow our TikTok, and you'll see her on there getting all the views. Hi, Haley. How's it going? Advocacy. No, digital associate. There you go. Got it.
Associate. There you go.
So many titles. So many titles here.
There's only so much space. Yeah, you only get to learn one at a time. And so
right.
It's like object
Haley and I work daily directly, and that's just kind of been the week it's been, because you start the week off with fantastic news. You're like, oh my gosh, young progressives are taking the world by storm.
Life is
Mamdani, good. Baby, Mamdani mania. That's how we started this, and we're like, there's hope for the future. Well, let's start there, because I mean, that's New York. Everyone's like, it's New York. It's way over there compared to Texas, but the first thing I thought was, this is great news for everybody else, because there is an enormous lesson to be learned here. One, young people aren't afraid of people of color. Two, progressive candidates, young progressive candidates, can win against household names. And three, if you do progressive things and say progressive things and mean it, people will vote for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at that like, okay, everybody every progressive in Texas needs to start looking at the playbook, because I know it's just a primary, but to beat a Cuomo, to beat other bigger names that have been in the game longer, as was he 32 years old, 33 years old? He could have been in my high school class. For him to be beating all these legacy candidates, that's incredible. What do y'all think about this? Because I'm stoked about it.
You're talking about the playbook, and I just want to point out that Twitter is an evil place, and I'm still on it. And people have been talking about this a lot. It's an energizing moment for young people, for diverse voices taking on the electorate. And I think that as we talk about the playbook, a lot of people are getting the lesson wrong. Similarly, what we saw during the election season, where there was a mass critique against the consultants and the C-class kind of suite of folks in the establishment Dem area. We're seeing the same kind of critique, where it's only a surface level investigation into actually what happened in this election. You pointed out it's progressive values, but on Twitter, what people on Twitter are getting wrong, as they often do, is a very surface level investigation into what happened this election, which is that progressive values won, right? It's the message itself that dominated and that persuaded voters to show up. He's an extremely good speaker, and so I think that is a huge part of it. He's also pretty. People have talked about this.
Yeah.
Pretty privilege is real, and thank you, Zoran, for showing the way.
Hold on, but it's always been that way. Real quick, it's always been that way. Look at Kennedy. Everyone's like, ooh, television, that guy's pretty. It matters. People, it's not even pretty privilege. It's youthful vigor, hope, and inspiration. Like, those things play visually well, especially at a time like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and especially with the conversation going between young and old, and boomers and millennials that are now 45 years old, and Gen Z who are now like 30. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait, I think the time's moving too fast. Yeah, 5 years happened during COVID. It's been a while. But back to the point of Mamdani being gorgeous.
And I think also talking on the point of his youth, one of the videos that he put out was him walking the length of Manhattan. You can't have like an 80-year-old candidate doing that. And so I think it also just shows, again, another contrast with that age difference and showing a new generation in power. Again, the message is what dominated. It's what persuaded voters. But a lot of people focused on the video content that his campaign could put out, because it was fantastic, along with his logo. And there was just such intention and also craft done with this campaign that I think is what has been misconstrued as the playbook itself, right? Like, you have the campaign strategy that was extremely effective. The comms team did a great job. But at the same time, you can't just replicate it with just like a pretty font and something that translates over video. It has to have depth and content and progressive values in joint with it. Otherwise, it's not going to persuade the voters. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, like one of the videos was him eating a gyro, and it's like, we should bring these down to 450 or whatever. It was something along those lines. Like, make
it's like, who doesn't want that? You know,
eating a gyro is going to be like, what is this? Make it cheaper, I guess. And then that's the end of the ad. It's not the same, right? Go ahead, Ayla.
What does he say? He said, egg, bacon, cheese.
That's what it was.
It's like, even I know that,
I'm not even from there and I know it's not the right thing. Come on, dude.
It's a meme.
But what I think impacted younger voters, or really just anybody, about this whole election is that Mamdani is, like we've discussed, a progressive. He's an economic populist. But what I think really drew people to him wasn't even just necessarily his campaign promises and his messages and his communication, which were all great. I think he was just very honest and authentic. Like, I think so much of what we see now is like people who are progressive or who are on the left feel the need to like morph their views or their platform or their messaging to try and like gain as many votes as possible, when like progressive values are successful. Progressives win when they actually run on the platform that they promise and don't try and like compromise on their beliefs and their platforms for people who are not their base. You know, I think Zoran, what he really saw is that progressives need energizing, and they need somebody who will actually deliver on these campaign promises, because they're not that complicated. Like, I think people are calling him a crazy commie because he wants affordable childcare and free buses.
But one of the things I noticed in the campaign, there was a debate going on, and the moderator said, "So, what's your first international visit going to be when you take office?" And everyone's like, "Israel for the first time, Israel for the fifth time. Israel, we're going to Israel, baby." And then Mamdani was just like, "I'm going to stay here and work on New York." And it was a very simple answer that people criticized him for, called him every name in the book for, called him an anti-Semite, called him a betrayer of the Jewish people, all these crazy, heinous things. And it was something as simple as, I just want to take care of the city of which I'm mayor. And it was, I think that message, that type of messaging really resonates with young people too. They're the ones that are hurting. Young people and poor people are hurting because of the policies, because of the ICE things, because of lack of wages, lack of labor support, labor laws, things of that sort. So they go, we don't have time to help others. I'm sorry, I can't think about that because I'm hungry. And it goes back to, you know, making sure kids are fed, and it goes back to making sure people are secure. And Mamdani simply said, I got to make sure New York is secure. That's what I'm running for. I can't think about anything else. And I think there's something very genuine and nice about that, where I'm going to take care of the people here. And surprise, surprise, over 1 million Jewish people live in New York. So it's not like he's ignoring that community. It's not like he's saying, forget them. It's very much, I want to take care of everyone. And I love that. I love that idea of taking care of your people, your constituents. Don't get lost in the sauce, folks. It's not that hard. That's part of it, right? That's part of that playbook. So,
and this is something that I think it was Clayton Tucker said in his announcement pod, which plug, go watch, it's great. Or listen rather. But something he said was that he thinks that Texans, it's our natural inclination to want to help each other. Texans help Texans. People help people. This isn't an insane, unheard of new idea. It's just taking 1% tax for billionaires to pay their fair share to help all of us succeed and get the things we need. And I think Mamdani running on that platform unapologetically, without compromise, with the vigor of a young person who really wants it, is refreshing and energizing for people. And I can see why.
Yeah, and we're talking about a government for all. These are what his campaign promises, policies relate to. And I think of where we are this week, which is Governor Abbott putting forward a special session, vetoing only one thing, and that's cutting off food for kids during the summer. It's a very stark contrast.
Sam,
Sammy's segment, think of the children, part 9. Greg Abbott cut funding for summer vacation lunches.
Yeah, and poor
children.
kids at that, summer EBT, the electronic benefits transfer program. So he really wants just the most vulnerable populations in Texas to suffer.
His reasoning was even worse because he said something along the lines of, "Oh, we weren't also going to get federal dollars for it, if I'm not mistaken." But the idea was that there wasn't going to be enough funding coming in as well, or he was going to reject it. One of those things. And so he was like, we'll just forget to do it altogether, as if we don't have a surplus, as if we don't have billions of dollars that it's still unallocated for a couple million to go for your own people. It's not like we're paying for Californians kids lunches. It's not we're paying for Ohio's kids lunches. These are our kids.
And I think of New York again and how, okay, so obviously there is this public desire to put in policies that help us afford our lives. His campaign is let's make a city we can afford, I think, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And still a huge part of this campaign was full of established Democrat backlash against one of the Democratic nominees, right? He was on the Democratic ticket, and yet you've seen state leaders like Kathy Hochul still refuse to give an endorsement even post primary. And it makes me think about how money plays into all of this. I think that we've talked a lot about how economic populism is the way, whether it's Trump or not. I'm going to digress in a minute, but I just watched a More Perfect Union video, and they've been putting out great content. I think they were just nominated for an Emmy, and that's the core of their content. Again, it's the message and the demonstration. But it was, we've all been talking about how to reach out to young men, and so they've just put out a video on how to do that. And the main thing that those guys, when they were all talking, walked away with is what Haley pointed out. Authenticity is the main thing. And also, we just can't afford to live right now. It's too hard. And so I think that's why it's particularly tragic, infuriating that Democratic establishment members still refuse to platform even the most basic progressive ideas out of fear that a lot of what they've been lobbied to campaign for could be jeopardized, if that makes sense. Like, corporate interests are overtaking what the people actually want. And that's true for the Republican and Democratic Party. And we really saw this play out within a Democratic primary in another state. But it relates back to here too. We've seen progressive voices be stomped out by their own party members.
Yeah. And I think it just makes me all the more grateful that Kendall was elected this past couple months. Being an unapologetic progressive run on economic populist platform is winning. This is something that people care about. And seeing Mamdani win in New York just made me feel so much better. Again, it's all the way across the country, but as somebody from Texas who's now experiencing a party that is now willing to stand up and fight for progressive values, it really does feel like a wave is coming. And God willing, if the creeks still rise, we're here by 2026. I think midterms will have some fun things to show.
I think of that More Perfect Union video again, and one of the main questions that gets prompted to these men is, do you support the Republican or the Democratic Party? And why is that? Because nobody is actually asking young men these things. And so what they tell us, and what you can see in the video, is that they think that Democrats are feckless. This is a common opinion of the Democratic Party, right? Like, you get into office and then you don't get to see a lot of the victories that Democrats get to do, or they hold out on it. I think that some of that is definitely a lot of Democrats have to go on the offense, especially coming from a Texas perspective. They're focused on getting anything moved through. We saw that this legislative session. But some of the time it is that they hold back on their campaign promises out of fear that they will be perceived as too left. We saw so many candidates during the 2024 election season almost go center. And now here we are immigration nationally with a much more, I wouldn't say publicly accepted, but they put us in this position where the immigration discourse is much more extreme than I think it would have been if they hadn't platformed a more center-right campaign across the board. And that's not to say that the public wanted this in the first place. I think that, again, we saw candidates think that this is what they needed to do to succeed.
Oh, that's because Republicans have always, especially here in Texas, have always been good at making immigration the game, right? they've been in power for over a decade and a half, and the migrants are still flowing in droves over the Texas border, and you've done nothing to stop them. You've done nothing to expedite the process for citizenship so that the people can go to work and they can pick the fruit and they can make the textiles. No. Oh, you're just using it to be spooky, scary criminals. Oh, okay. And then Democrats oftentimes fall into the trap of like, oh, well, they are kind of scary, but we want to make sure that no, they're not scary.
Yeah,
They're part of us.
Right?
They're who we
Just,
are. And growing up in 9/11 times when you're 10 years old, knowing that Mamdani was also like 8 years old when 9/11 happened or something along those lines, growing up dealing with all of the, I'll just say it, dealing with all the bullshit racism that Muslims had to go through, that Indian people who people thought were Muslims had to go through, who Punjabi people thought that they were Muslims, all the slightly ethnic races got racist against. He had to deal with all that. And for him to come out the end of it saying, I'm here to help New York, I'm here to help everybody, that is incredibly inspiring. And that helps so much. And it has been exposing the Republican side and their race. I'm not even gonna say xenophobe, racism. There's people saying that another 9/11 is gonna happen under his mayorship. Like, what are we even talking about? And they've been allowed to have the conversation about immigrants and about migrants and about people of outside origin in this country. And now it's coming to a head where the Supreme Court today, and this is why we do In Progress on Friday morning, noonish time. Supreme Court said, yeah, birthright citizenship. We'll see. Because it was a decision that essentially said, we're not going to stop any of the arrests questioning birthright citizenship. We're going to let it go through the process. We're going to essentially just giving free reign and being like, okay, we're going to harm migrants and we'll figure it out later and hope they're alive or hope that they're able to be found again and deal with it later. You know, just kind of push it aside. That's the gist of it. Go look into the more specifics. But essentially, we are even... Once again, our Friday crisis. I feel like every Friday there's a new bomb that is dropped. Like 4 Fridays ago was the Elon Musk fight. That was like a month ago was the Elon Musk fight. It hasn't been that long, but it feels like 30 years ago because every Friday there's been a new bombshell. What was last Friday's? I almost forget because it's been a week since, but I feel like last Friday something catastrophic happened. Go back to last week. You'll see because we'll be talking about it. But here we are in a situation where now ICE raids are still happening. Most, if not a lot of them, are masked, not showing badges, not wearing uniforms, and people are being whisked away now to countries that they don't have to be of origin to. So if you came here from Mexico, they can send you back to Sudan. If you're from Sudan, they can send you to El Salvador. If you're from El Salvador,
I was saying legally they could be deported because the Supreme Court wants to enable these actions. Sorry, to be clear.
No, but they said that they don't even have to go back to the country of origin anymore.
Yeah,
like that. We're just gotta get them out. Just get them out.
So like the racist thing they say of like go back to where you came from, it's like not even
they're not even playing by that rule anymore.
No, and it's just gotten so ridiculous. And I don't know if you guys have seen, I think it was a Norwegian tourist who tried coming to the United States and they found the JD Vance meme on his phone and detained him. And like went through all of his photos. They posted something by the government said something along the lines of like, if you're looking to travel to this country, make sure you have your social media on public. And it's I mean, it is a little, you know, humorous. It doesn't feel like the right word, but like seeing international news play that one meme of JD Vance.
Now there was other reports that he may have there was some drug issue stuff there, whether possession or prior use or prior conviction. So there's some gray. There's people arguing about it. Just wanted to put that out there of what not both sides it, but rather it may not be just as clear cut. But the idea that was the takeaway, right? The idea that it wasn't just clear a night and day. Oh, he had drug charges allegedly. That's why we didn't let him in, and it wasn't cleared up right away. The fact that people were able to go, he had JD Vance looking like a cherub with his. If you don't know, if you're an audience member out there who doesn't know about the JD Vance memes, people have been essentially making JD Vance edits of his face where he's got a very round, chubby-cheeked face like a cherub. They're putting propeller caps on him. They're giving him weird beards. They're almost transforming him into some sort of cartoony character. And it's very, very funny if you happen upon them. But the idea is that people are now worried about what they're posting on social media against the Trump regime, as they would say. I know that I can't leave the country right now because I burned 2 piñatas of Donald Trump upon his inauguration and end of his term. So yeah, they might not let me back in if I leave the country. So I'm not worried, but as I mentioned in the pre-show before we started recording, if they send me to Mexico, I can figure out a way back. I can prove that I'm an American citizen 5 times over. I got, my social security, got my birth certificate with the stamp from where I'm from. I got my passport, I got everything. But if they send me to Sudan, if they sent me to France, I wouldn't know what to do. And that is terrifying. I'm a college educated young man. I can figure out how to exist. There's some people that are being deported that all they know is the one language. All they know is the education that they've been given, not collegiate, maybe not even high school level education. They don't have the technology. They don't have phones. They don't have connections. And it can be just outright terrifying. Yeah. And that's what we're living in. And that's so fudged up. I don't have to cuss. It's just fudged up because we have such hope in one end of the week on Monday. We go, man, we could turn it around. We could fight. And then you have the other side of the Supreme Court going, nope. we should get rid of everybody who doesn't agree or doesn't look like me. And it's disheartening, but at the same time, Monday still happened. Yeah. Progressive still exists. People like us here at Progress Texas are here to fight. And we got to keep remembering that the fight is always going to be on. It's always going to be unprecedented times. Sorry, folks. I've made this realization, and I'm pretty sure our elders have made this realization. They went through Vietnam. They went through World War II. They went through assassination of Kennedy, X, MLK, Gandhi. Everybody who wanted to make a difference, they got murdered in their lifetime for our elders. We have all lived in these times that have been unprecedented. There will be no more precedented times. AI is going to ruin everything. Yeah, just as the internet did, just as the printing press did, just as steam power ruined everything, and coal, and just as electricity did. It's never going to stop. So we have to keep fighting, and we have to be ready for that fight. That's just been my existential crisis moment of the podcast. Go ahead, Tatum. You were going to say.
I bring it back to Zoran one more time. Yeah. I want to say it was either his victory speech or the speech right prior to it, but the line that I'll share is this is not a time for moral victories. And I think it just really stuck with me because it's not the time to no more symbolic efforts of like solidarity. No, like you need to be on the street with your neighbor protesting right now or doing whatever kind of mutual aid, whatever works for you. But this is not the time to stand back and just like let things happen because like you said, there's no more precedent for what's going on. Right. And at the same time, like history repeats itself and we have seen people fight against fascism and succeed. And I think that with the people's movement behind Zoran's campaign and linking that back to Texas and strong progressive movements here, it does give me hope and it does make me feel energized, especially in this time of crisis against fascist narratives dominating public life, really, really scary actions from the top down, pulling families apart. Yeah, I think it's the most important theme of hope that I could imagine for this moment in time.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's something that Greg Casar has emphasized, especially since the election, of not focusing on the culture war, so to speak. And again, to talk about Zoran, I think one of the bigger successes of his campaign is that he defined himself before the narrative could define him. And just repeating his campaign promises, repeating who he is. Let's keep this city affordable. Let's make this city affordable. And I think that's what we need to do. Like you said, the fascist narratives are it's hard to escape. It's dominating, but that's not everybody. And we just need to find those people and make them believe that there is a world that we can create where these narratives don't have to control every aspect of our lives, you know?
Right. And I can't wait for Mamdani's policies to help Republicans, poor Republicans that need it. I can't wait for that moment, because here's the thing. I've realized time and time again with our position here at Progress Texas and being a progressive and being on the left, or however you want to say it, we're trying to help everybody. There's no limit. We're not going to say we want rent control, but not for Republicans or not for Confederates, or maybe Confederates, because there shouldn't exist. But let's just say like backwoods, certain type of Texas, right, or certain part of Texas, right? We're not going to delineate who should get what. We want everyone to have good, affordable housing. We want people to have nourishing food that's not filled with poison. We want people to have fluoride in the water a little bit just to make sure our teeth don't fall out. RFK. You know, that like everything we try to do is for the benefit of all, not just for our people. And that's the part that is really hard to just, because we get so mad at the other side because they're trying to ruin everything. They're trying to ruin our fun. And it's real easy to give into that like disgusting feeling, but we just can't, because our motives are too pure and our goals are too helpful. The things that we want are too helpful. And in these ugly times, it's you know, Tatum, you were talking about a quote that stuck with you, probably like a TikTok or an Instagram quote or message that stuck with me. Was the quote essentially was, what would you do during civil rights movement? During the civil rights movement, because it's happening right now. What would you do during Japanese internment? Because it's happening right now. You know, I think about Japanese internment a lot, because the one thing that jarred me in the history of my life was that I'm from Fresno, California. There are horse tracks and there's a fairgrounds, and there's a plaque in there that says like, this is where one of the internment camps was for the Central Valley of California. They had people in camps on the racetrack, I believe, living in fear. American Japanese folks. That's crazy. That's crazy that was in my home. That was less than 5 miles away from my childhood home, that people were interned. That is, and so we're saying that what would we do now when our neighbors are being taken from the streets, where they're potentially being deported to places where they don't know, where they're saying that if you were not born here directly, or if you were a quote unquote anchor baby, or if you were this and that we'll just throw you back somewhere, back to where? Throw you somewhere because they've always existed in America. It's so scary. And so now's the time for action. Now's the time to protect our neighbors. Now's the time to be unapologetically progressive, because as you can see, the conservatives are trying to take us back to a place where we were, and it does not work for the modern world. And we're seeing that time and time again. And I think that was Zoran Mamdani, with his nomination for running for mayor, and everyone's assuming he's going to win, that is a step in the right direction. And I'm very excited about that. And that's where I'll end. I know we have a few things we need to plug coming up in terms of preserving our future. Tatum, I'm going to pass it to you.
Yeah. Well, you bring up Japanese internment camps, taking a look back to the past, and I am filming in Seattle right now. Bainbridge Island is very close to me. And plug, we have an upcoming national parks, historic sites, summer vacation series. Definitely check it out. Check out our socials in the coming week. I bring this up because Bainbridge Island has a historic site dedicated to preserving the history and honoring the people who suffered during Japanese internment. And this happened on Bainbridge Island. So with the current reconciliation bill in Congress, historic sites like those on Bainbridge Island would be the first to see cuts, along with national parks across the U.S. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to shout out that we will be covering this, and it's all connected, right? Like, we've been talking about a government for all, and the budget bill is the item of note for that right now. And you can see it from our national parks to, like we talked about with Governor Abbott, meals for kids during the summer. It's all of it together at the same time.
I guess the last thing I want to leave off, you guys both shared quotes, so I'm getting FOMO and I want to share a quote too. It was from Molly Duane in the Zworsky v. Texas documentary that they shot. I had the opportunity to go see the premiere, and it was life-changing. And one of the quotes that stuck with me the most was, I do not brave the storm, I am the storm. And it just makes me think that even with everything happening so quickly, it feels like I have no control over it. And in some ways that might be true, but I have to remind myself that a I am a force to be reckoned with, and the progressive movement is a force to be reckoned with. And when we all realize the power that we have to do change in our communities, whether that's just something small or getting legislation passed, or hell, becoming the Democratic candidate for the mayor of New York City,
Right.
we all can do so much more than we realize. And when we come together, anything's possible.
Yeah. And always remember, this movement kills fascists. So if you're out there, it's Friday. Lick your wounds if it's Saturday. Enjoy yourself if it's Sunday when you're listening. Enjoy a nice iced tea. Sounds like a thing. It's summery. It's going to get a little hot probably. As the world turns, it's going to get hotter. And then if it's Monday, if you're listening and you're on the drive to work, or maybe even coming home from it, just take that deep breath. You deserve it. And make sure that you're staying up to date on all of your Texas news here at Progress Texas. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, or X, however you want to call it. And be sure to go where you are right now, which is probably Apple Podcasts, maybe Spotify Podcasts, maybe some other form of podcast platform. And keep listening to Progress Texas Podcast, the Daily Dispatch, Monday through Friday, happy hour podcast intermittently throughout the month. And of course, this show right here in Progress every Friday until we get tired and sad to where we can't do it anymore. But
until precedent becomes too much, yeah.
But there is hope yet. And until then, we'll keep giving you the news. I'm Sam Gonzalez, Digital Director here at Progress Texas, being joined by Tatum. Thank you, Tatum, so much. And Haley, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Of course. Thanks, y'all.
And once again, give us 5 stars, hit the thumbs up, do all the things. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.